Howdy, howdy! You wanker. My name is Kev in the John. Alongside me, we have Mr. Granville Moonwalker. Woo! You are listening to But It Was Aliens. This is the paranormal comedy podcast where we probe paranormal events to decide, for the questionable benefit of humanity, whether those events really were paranormal. Woo! Today, we travel to Nova Scotia.
That's in Canada.
Canada. In the year of the inauguration of the London Missionary Society, who allegedly truthfully invented the position, the year of 1795. Daniel McGuinness was a 21-year-old with a heart filled with promise. It was the summer, a time of joy and adventure, a time to crack out the dance of joy. Daniel set off one fateful morning to begin just that, an adventure, not the dance of joy. Daniel got in his canoe and rowed himself from his home on the Mahone Bay in Nova Scotia across the water and onto Oak Island, an island named after the many trees that grew on this island.
So that's not an island that was named after Professor Oak.
Nor that, no. This is not Pokemon. Daniel, being a local kid, God, I hope I haven't put Professor Oak in this episode now. This is Pokemon. Daniel, being a local kid, knew that this area had been a pirate hangout for several decades, and Daniel knew that the island, among approximately 300 islands in the area, would lend itself to the burying of treasure. Daniel had heard growing up that famous pirate Captain William Kidd had buried his famous undiscovered treasure in this area. Daniel had heard the legend too that 7 men will die searching for the treasure before it is found. Ooh. As Daniel adventured around the east side of the island, Daniel noticed something in the ground. Or is that on the ground? Daniel noticed...
Was it under the soil?
Some unusual ground. Daniel had stumbled across an unusual depression in the ground, on the ground. A depression just below 5 meters in diameter, almost as if something had been buried. This was not a one-person job, and so Daniel rode his way back home with plans to tell his friends about his hole before returning the next day to finish the job Daniel had started.
Okay. Few things first.
Yes?
Missionary.
Aye.
Underrated position.
By who?
Many.
Isn't it the most common position? It's all I do, damn it!
Still underrated. 2, I'm very disappointed there isn't a picture of Professor Oak here.
Is there a 3?
There is. 7 men will die searching for the treasure before it's found.
7 men will die searching for the treasure before it is found.
Now, is this a well-known, little prophecy that 7 men will die? If so...
It was in this area, yes.
Who's keeping tabs?
Wow.
And do you reckon that anyone has gone and screwed people over to try and get to the 7? And
they're like, I'm number 8! So I put it to you that we shall keep tabs moving forward. And it is possible that someone tried to screw the system.
Okay.
But I'm not saying they did.
Just saying they tried.
Well, I mean, in olden times, how do you keep track of people who died late 1700s?
Not only that, but how do you keep track of those that died searching for the treasure? What if they just died in the area? They could be searching for the treasure but never made it anywhere near the island and died. do you count them? Do you count those?
What if people have been
about
searching,
it?
for the treasure like across the world? Still searching for treasure?
Absolutely.
7,000 men will die.
What if they plotted their route, their plan, they got everything ready, and then had a heart attack the morning of before they set sail?
Still searching.
Still searching.
Indeed. Loophole. Daniel did indeed tell his friends about Daniel's freshly discovered hole, and two of Daniel's friends were keen to get inside Daniel's hole themselves.
Bet they were.
Daniel returned to Oak Island the very next day, excited to show his friends his hole. Daniel's friends, John Smith and Anthony Vaughan, accompanied Daniel, bringing with them picks and shovels to get digging in Daniel's hole.
Well, we all know who's going to screw him over, don't we?
Why?
Can't trust it, John.
Whoa. I'll have you know, this John was honourable, reputable, trustworthy in fact. As the friends started to go at it in Daniel's hole, it quickly became obvious that they were not the first men to venture into this hole. The walls of Daniel's hole were battered and damaged. That is to say, the clay walls still carried pick marks. The friends dug deeper. At about 1.2 metres deep, the friends hit a layer of either paving slabs or roof tiles. At 3 metres, our diggers hit a log layer. The group hit further logs in Daniel's hole at 6 metres and 9 metres. By 9 metres, it was obvious that more equipment would be required. It was time to head home and better plan the next course of attack.
If you dug that deep
Into Daniel's hole.
into Daniel's hole
Yes.
and you hit something solid, would you be like, let's keep pushing? Or would you leave it at that?
Keep pushing. Gotta find out how deep it goes. What's on the other side? Jesus Christ.
So did they have, I suppose you said it right there, they need more equipment.
They're going with the basics. They were expecting this to be like a metre deep, general sort of buried treasure kind of thing. But there's evidence that people have dug in this hole before. There's marks all over the walls. It goes deeper and deeper. They keep finding more and more evidence of activity the lower they get.
That's so they're going to have to come back with quite a bit of kit, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Like
They need proper excavation materials.
just in case kind of stuff.
I mean, we're at 9 metres and it's still going. You think 9 metres? That's deep. Daniel McGuinness's planning took 9 years. By the time Daniel, Honourable John Smith and Anthony Vaughan were about 30, they could afford to fund a full-scale excavation of Daniel's hole. Close to 1805, the digging companions returned to Oak Island with their Onslow Company. As the group dropped the shaft deeper and deeper into Daniel's hole, they discovered platforms at 12 metres, 15.2 metres and 18.2 metres. At 24.4 metres, the group hit an oak platform. Then at 27.4 metres, the group uncovered a stone, which had been inscribed. The group lifted the stone out and continued their push deeper into Daniel's hole. That stone was later believed to say, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried. The diggers continued and uncovered another layer of logs, and at this point they believed that they were close to the treasure. Unfortunately, it was nightfall though, and water was starting to become an issue in the, well, by now you can call it a pit rather than a hole. So with that water seeping in, the group decided to rest until returning to the money pit in the morning. this is proper Goonies territory at this point.
It is. I'm unsure as to how such a monument below was created, or everything on top was created.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there must be like a mini. It's like going underground and finding like several houses.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of? We're going to cover this one day, but that underground city that was discovered.
Vaguely.
Yeah. So things like this, like I say, we're going to cover that one day. But things like this can happen.
I just can't wrap my head around how.
Imagine, okay, I'm proper Goonieing myself now. Remember in the Goonies, they went underneath like the wishing well. There was all these caves and whatnot underground that were there. And obviously the pirates had sailed in.
So I suppose if it was...
So imagine there's some sort of underground system perhaps that rather than going in, maybe that's a way they made to come out. I'm just throwing it out there.
I wonder if the level of water had changed at that point. Had the water risen?
That's a very interesting idea. Yeah, so maybe you can only get into it at certain times of year or in certain tides.
Or at that point.
Or at that point in the waters, the land level.
Over the years, the water has risen, so it's...
Damn you, global warming. Warming?
Also, £2 million are buried. So very...
Back then, that was freaking loads.
That would still technically be loads now.
Well, yeah. If it's
inflation.
Money.
But that's what I was about to say. £2 million is a really specific amount.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to count that much, you would either had to have robbed a bank, knowing exactly how much was in it, or it's £2 million in weight of something else.
Something else. Logs, perhaps. They keep it in logs every time they get lower. It's more logs. Not realising that's actually the treasure. Like cutting down trees was hard work back in the day. That was treasure to find £2 million worth of wood.
Treasure!
Completely off topic. I've just remembered something I meant to tell you earlier. I was walking Moxley, my dog, yesterday morning. No, Thursday evening. And by the brook, I let Moxley in the water. There was this other dog we've met once before, and they were in the water playing, and I was chatting to the owner, who's probably in her 50s or 60s. Really nice older lady compared to me. She's looking at me chatting, and then I just see bird poo smash on the floor, all behind her feet. And she looked me in the eye like, oh no. She did a bird just poop on me? And I was like, I'm not sure. A bird definitely pooped. I knew full well it had pooped. She had a basic shoulder pad worth of poo. The biggest bird poop I've ever seen in my life. Proper caked her shoulder.
Oh.
And then she turned the other way. And she had another patch on her head. Huge patch on her head. And she goes, is there any in my hair? And
Please tell me.
I was trying to keep my
You
composure.
did not say no.
I said, there's some. Possibly not as much as is on your shoulder. There was. Her whole side of her head was covered. I've never seen a bird poo so big. She's like, I'm going to the pub in 10 minutes. Not now, you're not. And she picked up, her phone started ringing, she picked it up and answered it by going, a fucking pigeon has shat on me. Oh, I felt so awkward. I'd have rather it pooed on me. It's just the way she turned in slow motion, there's just so much poo on her. I looked up and I saw the pigeon fly away straight after it happened. It was bloody huge. Oh dear.
Thursday night, you say?
Yes.
So it wasn't the pigeon that decided to attack my car.
I don't know. It could have been. I mean, it probably had a lot of energy after getting that weight off it.
Happened on Wednesday morning. pigeon decided it was going to play chicken with my car.
Who won?
Safe to say the car won. Then I had to spend several hours. Had to wash the car Wednesday afternoon and pick pigeon guts out of the grill.
Grim. At least it didn't do any damage.
Birds.
Well, to the car.
Done a tiny bit. Cracked the bottom of the
bugger.
fucking grill.
Was that near yours or was that at work?
On the way to work.
Yeah. Balls. I just can't believe how much bird poo there was. I just keep on seeing this pained look in her eyes as she turns to look at me and it's all just mattered on the side of her head. So bad. Anyway, back on the case. When the group awoke the next morning, to their horror, their shaft was completely flooded. The group tried to pump out the water, but the water level didn't even flinch. The group therefore gave up and went home to their farms for another year. That next spring, the group returned and managed this time to get to 33 metres without hitting the bottom, but at this depth, the tunnel walls collapsed and the shaft flooded again. The group were lucky to escape at all and returned home. Roll on 1849. Daniel was about 74 years of age by this point, if alive, because it's not clear if Daniel was involved in this next dig. A conflicting account suggests that Daniel passed away in 1827, whereby Anthony Vaughan was the executor and John Smith was a witness to Daniel's will. Smith, meanwhile, had brought up most of the plots of land on the island. Where'd the money for that come from? Anyway, a group called the Truro Company formed from investors. This group dug into the original shaft once more, reaching 26.2 metres without difficulty. A pause was taken on a Saturday evening. The group attended church Sunday and then returned Monday to discover that, you guessed it, the hole had flooded again. Once more, despite pumping, the water level could not be reduced. Soon thereafter, a drill arrived via horse. James Pitblado was the drill master and used the drill to pull up soil samples. The missionary drill master. James was quickly accused of swiping something shiny from one of the soil samples. The group of workers present insisted that James present whatever he had discovered to the group. However, James refused and insisted that he would present the object at a future meeting with the operation's benefactors. Shortly after this, James put in an offer to purchase the entire eastern side of Oak Island. James, however, mysteriously vanished shortly after this, never to be seen again.
They whacked him.
You whacked him.
So I'm assuming that this keeps flooding due to the water around the island.
Yes, I'd imagine so, yeah.
Cool.
Or a curse. I mean, whichever you think is more realistic. I mean, obviously curse, but I mean, whatever you think.
If they're at a point where the water is coming in from the top, why did they not build some form of barricade around the hole?
How do you know the water was coming in from top?
I'm assuming.
I presumed it was coming through the sides, because it wasn't always raining.
Okay. I was just wondering how close to the water this hole was. So the deeper it got, the more.
So it's not right by the shore, so to speak,
so
but it is an island.
Like that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Therefore, a barricade around could probably stop that, but then I suppose it would just spread around it.
Yeah, remember the
over
groups
time.
are camping nearby, so it's not like they're getting flooded overnight themselves.
True.
Interesting that John Smith and James Pitblado both started purchasing up bits on the island. I couldn't find anything about where that money came from. In 1850, a new shaft was dug. Can you guess what happened to this shaft? Yep, it flooded. A sample of the water was taken and it was confirmed that it was seawater flooding the shafts. At this point, it was realised that as the tide withdrew, the sand of Oak Island seemed to suck the water down rather than the water just drifting out, almost as if the earth was taking a drink. It appears that the original pit was dug with a clever drainage system in place, and this system just couldn't be replicated or had been booby-trapped. Dams, flood shafts and even dynamite were utilised to no avail.
Answers my previous question.
Further layers were discovered consisting of iron, then stone and then oak. How had earlier people gotten so low? This group tried all sorts to stop the flooding, including digging shafts off the main hole to try and get around the flooding to the treasure, and following the flood shafts up to a place called Smith's Cove, where the group unsuccessfully tried to block the flood shafts from filling with the tide. Just as the diggers uncovered yet more original defensive structures to protect the tunnel, the group ran out of money. When I say ran out, I mean that they were literally bankrupted by their tunnelling of this money pit. Meanwhile, the tunnel flooded again and the bottom fell through. It's ironic that I'm calling it a money pit because it's taken everyone's money who goes near it rather than giving them money.
Maybe this has all been a ploy. This is all like everyone's getting rich from the treasure that doesn't exist, except for those that are searching for the treasure that doesn't exist.
Someone set up like a mining and construction company near Oak Island and they're just constantly selling
Just
people
selling
their
them
gear.
bits.
Oh, you need this, you need this.
And that's how they're getting their money. That's how they're getting rich.
Either that, or it is a pirate hideout that's been goonied. Booby traps. Indiana Jones'd. Jonesin'. In 1861, the Oak Island Association re-excavated the original pit. During this dig, there was an explosion as a pump engine boiler burst which killed one of the workers. This association tried barricading flood shafts too, but these folks ran out of money and the site was deemed unsafe. The Halifax Company, sometimes known as the Oak Island El Dorado Company, formed in 1866. This group also tried to shut off the flood tunnels from Smith's Cove, unsuccessfully. The group gave up without any success in 1867. In 1896, a new company had heard of the treasure and moved in. A piece of parchment was recovered with the letters VI on it. Who was VI? The shaft flooded again before they could dig further. On March the 26th, 1897, there was an accident and a workman called Maynard Kaiser fell to his death in the pit. In 1898, the group poured red paint into the hole to find the exit holes of the floodwater. The group eventually gave up.
So this is where we take a look and find out that we were right originally. If you look at all the invoices for all these companies that have gone bankrupt, they all brought their gear from the same places.
Marvin's Mining is raking it in just round the corner.
And this is where you find it's Daniel who has set this up and has made his family very wealthy.
Daniel's digging.
We've got potentially 3 deaths on our hands.
3, because of the person who went missing as well.
4.
Potentially.
Yeah.
2 confirmed kills.
2, yeah.
Dog tags collected.
1 MIA. And 1...
Suspicious mystery.
yeah, we have no idea if he's still alive. But they're still digging in his hole. They're digging in a dead man's hole.
Oh, Lord. Humans don't learn lessons. In 1909, a new expedition was undertaken through the Old Gold Salvage Group led by Captain Henry L. Bowdoin. The pit was cleared to 113 feet, over 34 metres, and divers were sent in, but they came back empty-handed. Captain Bowdoin also analysed that inscribed stone, suggesting that it was just a plain basalt rock. Subsequent digs took place via private companies in 1930, 1935 and 1936, and none brought any discoveries. Those latter two digs were led by new owner of the southeastern part of the island, Gilbert Dayton Hedden Sr. The treasure remained missing. In 1963, a new dig was undertaken led by Robert Restall, Robert's 18-year-old son, and their work partner, Carl Grazer. On the 17th of August, 1963, Robert Restall was overcome by hydrogen sulfide fumes from the exhaust of Robert's water pump, and Robert died. Robert's son went down into the hole to rescue his dad and sadly lost consciousness before passing away too. Carl Grazer, Cyril Hiltz and Andy Demont were sent down the hole to rescue the workers. They didn't return.
Okay, 7. We've got our 7.
A visitor, and I don't know if this means literally a passerby, but Edward White was next lowered on a rope down the shaft when those 3 didn't pop back up. White did make it back, and he managed to bring back, but only bring back, Andy Demont, meaning that on this day, Restall's son, Grazier, and Hiltz all passed on.
We've got 6.
Death is sat there chalking them off. Wait, shit! Don't go down there!
So, when he went down, were they all in the same place?
Not exactly, no.
Okay.
Presumably one had gone down very far, the next not quite as far, and so on and so forth.
I suppose
And he could only get down to get the first one out.
it depends on how susceptible to the fumes you are as well.
Potentially, yeah, if you're invincible, then...
I'm invincible! I'm not, don't try it.
Try what? Sending you down a money pit? I've actually got this hole in my garden.
Are you saying you want me to go into your hole?
I want you to dig in my hole.
It's in your garden. I don't do garden.
I was just thinking, so I got sidetracked in my head that you'd have thought like some sort of authority would have stepped in at this point, wouldn't you? And be like, just stop digging there. The amount of people that are either going bankrupt or dying, yet it's just fair game.
If people want to spend their money ridiculously and buy Porsches,
Well, I guess if they're not hurting anyone else.
and then hand said Porsche to me, then they can do that.
Don't think that's what we
It's
were
their own
talking
money.
about. However, if you want to buy a Porsche and hand it to me, you can go ahead and do that. You'll be helping your local community. In 1971,
Kevin bought a Porsche.
the Triton Alliance Company went to Oak Island, having purchased most of the island in the previous couple of years. This...
Sorry. Got a question.
Yep,
Who are they buying the island from?
the previous owners.
So who owns like the ones
So
that are dead?
this is a good
or-
question. I said about the people buying up plots of land on the island before. I suppose you look at your house, you own that plot of land.
Mm-hmm.
If you were rich enough, you could buy the plots of land beside you and branch out and so on and so forth. So this is what's happened on the island over time. People have bought different plots. But
Oh, fair enough.
when can you first start buying a plot of land? Like, someone has just claimed that land, haven't they, to then sell it? Can I go and put a flag in your garden now and be like, this is mine?
You can try it.
Well, you don't do gardening, so I feel like I'd be pretty safe.
You'd have to fight someone over that, though. You should kick your ass more than I would. And you don't do gardening either.
No, I hate gardening. It makes me sad. So the Triton Alliance Company had it all. Modern mining technology, subterrestrial cameras, and even diving equipment. The TAC allegedly took photos of chests and human remains in the hole. The TAC, however, were also unable to uncover the treasure. The shaft collapsed and the TAC ran out of money. Oh my gosh.
I've just figured it out. £2 million. That's how much the whole
these companies have
wants
lost.
The people to spend before it gives them a lick of like treasure back.
And the treasure is like a rock. We love this rock. Since about 2006, Rick and Marty Legina have owned most of Oak Island. These folks have investigated the money pit, the swamp, and most of the island as documented on the history show The Curse of Oak Island. The Leginas have recovered coins, metal, wood, and coconut fibres, which allude to the island's occupation and potential use by traders or indeed pirates from times past. However, the Leginas have not recovered money from the money pit. These folks have even discovered old mining shafts and historic wooden structures. Their radars have suggested interesting underground structures, but these folks have not been able to uncover any treasure. Magnetic surveys suggest there is metal underground, but the subsequent digs came up with nothing. There have even been underwater probes which have evidenced human-made caverns and metallic objects, but no cigar. Oak Island is a tease. The Leginas did discover something interesting though. 2 bones. One was of Middle Eastern descent and the other of European descent. Did the money pit claim its 7th victim unbeknownst to the world?
Would it be the 8th?
Well, we've got unconfirmed for some of the deaths, but it seems it may have hit 7 at some point. We just don't know when.
Also, could these bones not be the bones of people that have already passed?
Do you mean people who we know died in the hole? No, these were separate.
The only problem is we don't know if these people were searching for the treasure.
They could have just fallen into the hole by accident.
What if they were part of the civilization that was there before the water rose to a point?
Then the hole may be unclaimed in terms of its victims to this day. It's stuck on number 6. Do you want to go to the hole, Granville?
Let's do it.
I'll let you go in first.
Nah, you're all right.
I am busy. To this very day, nobody has any idea who originally dug the money pit and nobody has recovered the treasure. But do we have any idea what that treasure could be? We begun by mentioning Captain Kidd's treasure. Kidd was a famous pirate who was famously executed and strung up over the Thames. Before he died, Kidd was said to have buried his gold and silver ingots, and Oak Island is a believed location. Was it a pirate's curse that was placed on the treasure? Some believe the money pit houses a gold stash buried by the British Army, who were protecting their riches in case their neutrality didn't stick during the American Civil War. Others believe that the original manuscripts of William Shakespeare are buried on Oak Island, and evidence that the original author was not William the Bard, but in fact rumoured Templar Knight Francis Bacon. A Freemason's code is supposedly hidden in Shakespeare's works, which will lead to a map of these works when uncovered. Dennis King suggested in his work The Oak Island Legend, The Masonic Angle, that it may be religious artefacts from the times of the Templar that are hidden at the bottom of the money pit. Artefacts such as the Ark of the Covenant or the Holy Grail itself. The big leagues. It's said that Templars fled Philip IV of France, who, in debt to the Templars, had ordered their destruction in 1307, pre-European discovery of America and Canada. Another theory is that Oak Island was the site of a UFO crash. We have an unusual and seemingly almost bottomless pit containing structures as if people may have been building a structure out of rather than into the hole. Nobody can find the treasure, and scans did show metals that haven't been recovered. Maybe it's about time that somebody started analysing that soil. The nearly last explanation is that of a sinkhole. Some have suggested that the depression originally stumbled upon by Daniel McGuinness was in fact a natural depression, a sinkhole, just a standard hole. But I ask you, dear probers, what is Mother Nature hiding in that hole?
Well.
Do you lean towards any one of those potential explanations?
Oh, well.
A well built by who?
Well.
Well built a well.
It's a well built well.
By well.
By
A
well.
well built well by well. Wow.
I see it's actually called Money Pit Area.
Yes, yeah. Today it's got fences around it so you don't fall in, and some signs.
To be honest, I think I'm going to stick with my original guess earlier on in the episode. And that's that this was built before, like when there was access there.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow water levels have risen, things have grown above, almost like not an underground community. It's a shame you don't have a picture of the island so I can see how this could be possible. That something was, like you said, with the underground city and everything like that. Or maybe this was originally somewhere where they tried to dig for oil.
Way back. I don't know enough about when digging for oil became a thing. Presumably not like in the 1300s, I'd expect it.
Because they're detecting metal under there, but then are they detecting metal in the rocks, like everything like that? Because you have metal elements in rock.
Yeah.
So are they detecting that, or is it solid metal, like?
So
there's metal beams under there. Or
they've
something
suggested
like that.
solid metal, but I can't say that the results have been given clearly enough to rule out different interpretations.
And it's also, what did they use to classify metal, and when was it? So, like, say for
the
example,
scans have been recently, if that's what you mean. Sorry.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Like post 2000. Very recent. This TV show is only a few years old, and they go around just excavating their island basically.
Fair enough.
But we have one last theory before we prepare to close out. William Phipps was an explorer from the 1600s. Imagine that being your job title. I'm an explorer. In 1685, King James II became King of England. This king was not popular, and one of James's enemies travelled to the Netherlands, where they convinced the King of the Netherlands, William III, who was married to King James's daughter Mary, to oppose James. Money was needed to fund a war. William Phipps had in 1687 discovered a Spanish shipwreck filled with treasure to the sum of approximately $4 million in today's money. Phipps was allegedly convinced by enemies of the king to return to the wreckage to plunder more booty, and Phipps, who had issues with King James himself due to the king's reluctance to let the settlement at Massachusetts self-govern, did exactly that. Phipps took so much loot that some had to be stored on a nearby island. Phipps is said to have returned to the Netherlands with scores of silver and funded the war, which was successful in overthrowing King James II during 1688. William III, aka William of Orange, landed in Britain with 20,000 troops. King James's army disintegrated as William approached London, as nobody liked James, and James went into exile. That was the last successful mass invasion of England, the Glorious Revolution. Though he'd funded the success, Phipps had more money left and travelled towards Canada to recover the remaining loot. It is believed that the crew had hidden that loot in a deep pit they created on Oak Island. The pit, however, flooded, preventing the treasure from being retrieved when Phipps returned. The pit was therefore sealed and abandoned. Phipps went on to establish the court who carried out the Salem witch trials, and his treasure was forgotten, except for local legend. Some believe that the British secretly tried to regain the treasure, but after unsuccessful attempts, they booby-trapped the pit so that nobody else could have the treasure, creating the many flood tunnels that have scuppered modern recovery attempts. That's a very British thing to do.
That is
You
very
can't have it.
British thing.
No
to do.
one's having it. An axe from 16th to 17th century England has been found on Oak Island, as confirmed on the Curse of Oak Island, alongside the layers of wood carbon dated to the 1600 and 1700s. Bones discovered were also dated to the same time period, so we do know that there was activity on Oak Island at this time.
So definite British thing to do.
We are miserable bastards.
But then, I suppose it works both ways. It's let's see if we can get the treasure. Well, if we can't, let's not allow
Other people to harm themselves trying.
our enemies
It's definitely not that one,
to
is
get
it?
that and then use it against us. I mean, it works both ways. I'm not saying that that's how they fought.
Yeah. You could claim it.
They were like, well, if I can't have it, you can't have it. So I'm going to take my ball and go home because you won't let me score a goal. That kind of shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are accounts of people being on Oak Island as far back as 1398, when noble Scotsman Henry Sinclair, an alleged Templar knight again, was passing through. This is obviously well before the founding of Halifax in 1749, with the area rumoured to be a pirate hideout during the previous century following the European rediscovery of America in 1492. Nova Scotia is Latin for New Scotland. Two of the earliest accounts of the Money Pit are the Liverpool transcript edition of October the 16th, 1862, and the Colonist of Halifax, January the 2nd, 1864 edition. That Liverpool transcript actually outlines that a dying member of Captain Kidd's pirate crew stated that £2 million of treasure was buried on Oak Island. Captain Kidd was executed in 1701. Other historical sources include Judge Mather B. Desbrizes' 1870 History of Lunenburg County. Now here's one last blow for you. Investors in the groups excavating Oak Island include then future United States President Franklin D. Roosevelt and Richard Dick E. Byrd, who you may remember as the pilot who flew through a hole in the pole, discovering the hollow earth during Antarctic expeditions, as we covered in our episode 40 on Hollow Earth. That is the probe.
So Mr. Dicky Bird,
Dickie Baird.
that flew through one hole,
Yes.
he didn't try and go through another?
Well, he may have. He was one of the lead investors.
He was
might
an
have been trying
investor
to
though,
get-
but
yeah,
did,
but
did he go there himself.
Or maybe he could afford to have other people put themselves at risk rather than himself. He wanted them to clear their way through the hole before he slid in. Nice and safe.
Imagine both of these are correct. So if you go to Oak Island, there's actually several plots of land that have a ridiculous amount of money buried underneath. They've just happened to stumble upon one of them. And what if that one isn't even the one through, what's his name, old Pips?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Captain Kidd.
it's not Captain Kidd's either.
Yeah,
this is another one that we're unfamiliar with.
There are actually hundreds of money pits on this island full of treasure, but they just keep on digging in the wrong places. So close, inches away.
It's like that meme where people give up and they're literally like a pickaxe strike away from the diamond.
Yeah.
That's this.
So what you're saying is that we should go to Oak Island.
Yep. You can go first.
I am busy. In summary, this episode has covered the Oak Island Money Pit, first discovered in 1795 by Daniel McGuinness, who dug with friends but couldn't find what he believed to be Captain Kidd's pirate treasure. McGuinness had heard the local legend growing up that 7 men will die searching for the treasure before it is found. We covered that many companies have attempted to excavate the money pit since, based on this legend. The Onslow Company had a little dig, found a stone which may have suggested that there was 2 million something buried 40 feet below. The company got flooded and gave up. They didn't want to be one of the 7. The Truro Company got flooded, went bankrupt and gave up. The Oak Island Association were up next. First, a pump explosion killed a worker. Dead man 1. Then they got flooded, went bankrupt and gave up. Next up was the Halifax Company, who got flooded and gave up. An unknown group were next, and these folks found parchment that could be related to Templars. In 1897, one of their workmen fell in the pit to their death. Dead man 2. This group gave up. Rolling in next was Captain Bowdoin's expedition, the Old Gold Salvage Group, who got flooded and gave up. There were many further unsuccessful digs. Then in 1963, Robert Restall lost consciousness in the pit. Restall's son went in after him. After they didn't come out, a Mr. Greaser, a Mr. Hiltz and a Mr. Demont went in. A visitor went in after them, and only the visitor and Mr. Demont came out. Dead man 3, dead man 4, 5 and 6. 1 remains. The Triton Alliance Company were next to try, but these guys got flooded, ran out of money, the pit collapsed and they gave up.
Bunch of quitters.
In 2006, the Legina brothers brought most of the lots on the island and made a TV show tracking their digs and finds. Over the years, digging in the pit has revealed charcoal, putty, spruce platforms, wooden chests, layers of wood and iron, coconut fibres, parchment, metal chunks, a cement vault, a human hand and other bones. An inscription on the stone, a flood tunnel and booby traps. But no treasure has been recovered. Does this pit contain Captain Kidd's pirate loot, the British Army gold, Shakespeare's original works, sunken ship treasure, Templar artifacts? Is the pit the site of a UFO crash? Or is this just a natural sinkhole? Or were those bones found part of 7 people who have previously died in the hole before all of this, and did McGuinness actually recover the treasure and not tell the world? Do you want to think about that or anything else before we conclude, Mr. Moonwalker?
I did not know that Nova Scotia meant New Scotland.
You do now.
I do now. It's a pretty cool name. It's quite a lot to go over. We've got a bunch of quitters.
Damn Swedish monkeys.
I was just about to say I'll give you 20 quid if you can tell me what a quitter is.
Pay up.
You'd answered before I said it. Doesn't count. Oh. Okay.
You're ready?
Pirate curse.
Right.
No.
Right.
Aliens? No.
Right.
Actual sinkhole?
Right.
No.
Right.
Possibly Phipps's treasure.
Right.
I'm more inclined to go with that than any of the other ones.
Okay. So, on that note, are you saying that it was aliens, a pirate curse, even pirate treasure? Essentially, Mr. Moonwalker, what are you saying that this was, and are you saying that this was that?
I'm saying that this was that, and that is what I said it was, but not the other three things that you said it could be.
So you're thinking Phipps.
Yeah.
That one does feel like it's got a bit more tangible history to it, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially the fact that they gave up, and then the whole thing about the British trying to get to it but couldn't get to it, so decided to booby trap it.
Yeah, that feels just
so British.
Yeah. In this episode, it's really struck me how greedy and stupid we are as a species. There really hasn't been much to suggest there's actually treasure in this hole. A liars club could have come up with the pirate stuff for all we know, and then boom, greedy companies roll on in. Having said that, it is intriguing how much stuff has been found on this island, and it was clearly being used hundreds of years ago. So, Mr. Moonwalker, I say to you, let's go there. We'll put you on a rope and lower you down, and I absolutely won't cut it so that you're number 7. We can do this. You first.
I'm busy.
Yeah, I like the Phipps story too. I think this island may well could have been like either a Templar stopping station or a pirate stopping station on their way around the Americas and whatnot.
Yeah, like that midpoint.
And that would explain a lot of the artifacts that have been found there. And obviously there was bones from like Middle Eastern Europe, for example. So I feel like that's what lends credence to this story, but I don't think there's any treasure left there.
What's the place that the pirates would stop at in Pirates of the Caribbean?
Tortuga.
That's it. It could be
Or real life Nassau.
similar to that. That's the point they stop at. They drink, they party, they
Cut
do
down some
whatever,
trees to
and
repair
then-
their boats,
and
and
then they
then
bugger
head on
off.
off. Yeah. So that could explain, like I say, a lot of the artifacts and whatnot there. And then over time, stories of pirates being in the area turns into there being treasure in the area, but actually not many, if any, pirates buried their treasure. They often had perishables like wine and stuff like that, and and spices, sell it, get drunk, back out to sea, get some more.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a wrap for today. Not a curse. Thank you for listening to But It Was Aliens. If you are interested in funding our expedition to Canada, you can head to a little place on the internet called patreon.com/But It Was Aliens. Help us to dig this pit and not harm Moonwalker for less than the cost of a cup of coffee. And in return, you'll gain access to our monthly side probes where we probe paranormal tales, mysteries and conspiracies too close to the mark. X marks the spot in the money pit. Speaking of X's, if you have an episode suggestion to share, you can hit us up on the X Twitter. But It Was Aliens. You could also say hello and share your condolences after the accident on Facebook, where connected to But It Was Aliens, there is a secretly public private group called Extraterrestrial Towers. Being a member of Extraterrestrial Towers grants you protection from the aliens when they invade and gives you an alibi when something happens to a former MIB, not that it will, in a money pit, having been lowered down by someone who won't be named. That is it for this episode, so until next time. If humans evolved from apes, why are the apes still here? The truth is up there. #Pride.